Have you ever really stopped to think about how the instruction manual for life, your DNA, actually builds you? I mean, it's happening billions of times a second inside your body, but you can't see a single bit of it. Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain and explore how technology is finally making the invisible visible. So let me ask you this. Think back to biology class. How did you learn about what goes on inside a cell? If you're anything like me, it was probably from some flat, kind of confusing diagram in a textbook. And that's a huge challenge, right? How do you truly get your head around a process that is completely and utterly invisible? Take gene expression, for example. That's just the process of turning your DNA's code into the proteins that basically run your entire body. The thing is, it's totally invisible, it happens in a flash, and honestly, it's incredibly complex. Trying to learn this from a textbook is kind of like trying to understand a hurricane by just looking at a single photograph. You just don't get the full picture. So what's the fix? Well, we take the lab out of the classroom and we put it right onto the screen. We build a virtual world that's designed specifically to make these hidden biological processes just, pop right off the page and come to life. It's called a gene expression virtual lab. The best way to think about it is like a flight simulator, but for biology. It's this awesome 3D world where you can follow a gene's journey from a tiny strand of DNA all the way to a finished protein, and you can do it all without ever touching a single test tube. And this is a total game changer for learning. We're moving away from just passively staring at diagrams. Instead, students are diving right into an interactive 3D simulation where they can experiment and practice as much as they want. It's the difference between somebody telling you how a car works versus actually getting behind the wheel and driving it yourself. So what's it actually like to step inside one of these digital labs? What does the student really get to do and see? Let's take a look at the core science that makes it all possible. Okay, so the whole simulation is built on a core biological principle called the central dogma. Now, that sounds really complex and intimidating, but it's not. It's really just the story of how the instruction manual of life, our DNA, gets read and put into action by our cells. That's it. The whole thing breaks down into these 3 key steps. First, you've got replication, where DNA gets copied. Then there's transcription, where a little piece of DNA is read to create a messenger molecule called RNA. And finally, translation, where that RNA message is used like a blueprint to build a protein. It's basically the cell's information assembly line. And here's the best part. Students aren't just watching a movie of this happening. Oh no, they are in the driver's seat. They can literally flip the switch to turn on a gene, run the simulation, and they can even introduce mutations to see what happens, what breaks, and the feedback is instant. And that's how we actually learn, right? By doing. Okay, so we've seen how it works, which is pretty cool. But let's talk about why this is so revolutionary. This isn't just another neat tool. It's a huge leap forward for science education. This quote from the source material just nails it. The goal here is to turn all that abstract theory into clear, hands-on understanding. Because when students can see and mess with these processes themselves, they just learn faster. They understand it all on a much deeper level, and they build real confidence in the subject. And get this is a massive benefit. 0 risk. Students can experiment, they can make mistakes, they can try again and again as many times as they want, all without any exposure to the biohazards or dangerous chemicals you'd find in a traditional wet lab. That freedom to explore safely, that's a total game changer. I mean, when you put it all together, the advantages are just undeniable. It's way cheaper than building and stocking a physical lab, it's completely safe, and it's accessible to literally anyone with a computer. And that accessibility allows for something absolutely crucial, repetition. You can try an experiment 100 times if you need to, until you finally get it. That is the real path to mastering something. But really, the biggest impact is on the students themselves. This isn't just about memorizing facts for a test. The interactivity just skyrockets engagement. The visual nature makes their understanding so much deeper, and that combo builds the confidence and the problem-solving skills they need to think like actual scientists. All right, let's zoom out for a second and take a look at the bigger picture here. Because this approach, this has implications that go way, way beyond just one lesson in a biology class. What we're really seeing is a whole new framework for education. Think about it. If we can make gene expression visible and interactive, why can't we apply the same ideas to quantum physics, or complex chemical reactions, or geological processes? It's about using technology to make the unseeable understandable. And that leads us to a final big question. We've used this tech to make biology's code visible. But what's next? Could we use a virtual lab to visualize the complexities of climate change? Or the flow of the global economy? Or maybe even the spread of an idea? What's the next invisible world that we need to make tangible?